Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, audience discretion is advised.
Welcome to Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture. And the bit is that there is no bit. My name is Brady Davis.
My name is No Gimmick Jody Kite.
I am slightly a gimmick, Ethan Skinner.
James McCarthy.
So, let's see. Jody, what have you been doing?
In its chase for the gold of cramming in as much fucking shit that they can into Fortnite, they've crammed more shit into Fortnite.
Well, yeah.
This last...
And you're surprised by this?
I'm not. I'm aggravated by it. So, on top of everything else that I've talked about, in case our listeners haven't listened to my rant on it already, currently, before this update, you could get Captain America shield, War Machine's rocket gloves, and jetpack and auto turret, Doctor Doom's sorcery gloves, and Black Panther's claw gloves, and also Doctor Doom's Luger as well.
Okay.
And so Tuesday there was an update, and now after the second storm draw happens, there is both a War Machine drop somewhere in the map and a Iron Man drop somewhere in the map.
Oh, okay.
So when you go to those, if you could stand on the spot long enough, you get fitted in all of the gear.
Oh, wow.
Iron Man has rocket boots, and his gloves shoot laser beams out of them.
Okay. Repulsor blast. But
Repulsor
I'll let
blast.
You continue.
And there's also Stark Industry laser rifles as well.
Oh, okay.
And then War Machine just gives you all of the gear, but you don't have to look for it. It's all in one spot. Also, at the same time, that happens when those drops happen. There's two or three vaults that open up that normally that would be like a death mission right there because people go for them because you have like better drops in those in the chests. But now, since this Iron Man and War Machine drop thing started this Tuesday, people tend to go for those first.
Okay.
Also, I don't remember if I told you about Doom Island. Did I mention Doom Island before?
I don't think I'm...
Is this another one of those Netflix dating shows you watch?
Yeah.
It could be.
Somewhere in the game, about halfway through your session, a floating island will appear, and you can take a zip cord up to the top of it, and if you could stay on the center of it long enough, you can capture the point, and it drops a bunch of really good gear, except... Now, there's a 20 to 50% chance, depending on the day, that instead of a regular floating island, it's Doctor Doom's floating island. And you're not Doombot, you're Doctor Doom.
Okay.
And instead of having 100 hit points and 100 shields, you have 500 hit points and 500 shields.
Damn.
With health regeneration and a ridiculous Doctor Doom sorcery beam that just fucking blows everybody out of the water. You can almost teleport to anywhere, and you have like a little floating icon that you can see on the map if you're not Doctor Doom, that you can see where he's coming from, and he moves really fast.
Damn.
And he's impossible to kill almost.
That's funny.
No.
I mean, that's what Doctor Doom should be.
The only time that we actually defeated him in the game was someone captured it right when the storm was happening, and Doctor Doom died in the storm.
Okay.
Nice.
That's it for my weekly Fortnite news. Moving on to the other things that I've been doing. I've been playing Mortal Kombat 11 again.
Okay.
It was on sale. Me and my friend Phil have been playing. And by playing...
When he's here next, we need him on the show.
Definitely. Maybe in a year or two. He lives in Japan. He's been just completely kicking my ass, which is fine because I'm just getting reattuned to the game. And he played one of his mains. And after that game, I said, if you want us to keep playing, you're gonna have to not do that again.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but it's fun. I'm like, yes, for you it's fun.
Yeah.
I understand. Even at 43, he's still just as trolly as anybody else in this room. And I told him, if you get Street Fighter 25th or 30th edition, 30th year of anniversary edition, we'll play Third Strike, and I'll play Elena or Chun-Li, and you will cry a river. He's like, we should do that. I'm like, you're not going to. It's not going to work that way. We'll play 2 games, and then he'll quit because that's what I threatened to do.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to try at least, figure out my moves before I die instantaneously.
I really need to get that because I'm able to get it with the with my premium account.
Yeah.
So I should probably get that. So maybe you and me could play.
Yeah, I need to. Currently, I have the base game, but if I could unlock the whole game for like $9 more, and I'm thinking about doing it. Currently, my mains are Scorpion, Cassie Cage, which is Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade's daughter, and the Bug Lady, Dvorak or whatever, some other Russian composer.
I think when I played it, I think I remember playing Kotal Khan the most. At him and the weird 6-armed guy.
Yeah, she's really disgusting in multiple ways. Her combos are pretty stupid, and she throws up bugs in your mouth, so that's also disgusting. But she's really good for like new players because a lot of her combos are, compared to everybody else, is a little bit easier to pull off. Sub-Zero is just weird to me in this version of Mortal Kombat. Raiden is closer to classic control schemes. And Scorpion too, for that matter. But it's been fun. I'm surprised the lack of characters that they have. Characters that are in the story that are not playable characters, like the Cyber Ninjas are in the story, but you can't play as any of the Cyber Ninjas.
I think that there's an unlock where it's the Triborg.
Yeah,
and it's
Triborg,
all 3 of them.
and you're able to.
Triborg was 10. I don't know if he's in 11.
Yeah, I just remember seeing that somewhere.
I have an open computer. I can check that real quick.
Sure.
It might be 10 because I do remember that. Because like 10, you have you're able to select the character, but then you're also able to choose a certain aspect of it, where each aspect has a different fight style.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Well, specifically, it's Cyrax Sector and I think
Smoke.
Smoke. Yeah.
Man, I went back and played Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. I love that game. I think that's my favorite version of Mortal Kombat outside of 2.
Yeah. I liked Trilogy just because it had all the people.
Well, 3 had Trilogy, Ultimate Trilogy or whatever. It has everybody.
Ultimate had a lot more from 3, and then Trilogy had even more people than that.
Right. Maybe it's that one. It's it's almost everybody.
Yeah.
Well, Mortal Kombat 3, at least the one for the Super Nintendo, did not have Scorpion.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
But then Mortal Kombat Trilogy on N64 did have Scorpion. And
Right.
I think one of the reasons for that is you had Cyber Smoke, and Cyber Smoke really is kind of especially in that one, is Scorpion for the most part as far as moveset goes.
Yeah, I think the PS1 also had Mortal Kombat Trilogy as well.
Yeah, I had it on the PS1.
Right.
I think I still have that.
Fantastic.
Triborg is Mortal Kombat X, so Mortal Kombat.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
Mortal Kombat.
Sadness.
I know in the new Mortal Kombat 1 with the upcoming DLC, they're adding back Cyrex and Sector.
Yeah, I don't know about 1. I just don't know.
I know 1 has been a little bit polarizing.
Well, polarizing and also buggy in a lot of bad ways. The big thing that I think kind of just really kind of worked against it was the fact that certain combos could only be done by the first player. If you were on the second player, even if you moved from right side of the screen to left side of the screen, you couldn't do the combos because of the way the inputs were going in.
Right.
And that's really big.
That's a bad scene.
I want to say that's only for the Nintendo Switch versions.
No, that was across all versions.
It's across
all versions.
Gotcha.
They fixed it, and I do want to stress that they fixed that because because Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch, which is funny as fuck. There's no fixing that. That's just inherent with being able to not optimize a slower system. But they fixed that part, thank God. But it started out kind of rough. I think also there was a bit of a backlash for the selections that were made as far as like who could be played and who couldn't be played, which is kind of sad in that regard. But
if I'm not mistaken, they pared it down a lot from the last like couple. But.
Yeah, and you'll have cycles like that, like Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
Daigo Umehara, who's arguably the best Street Fighter player of all time, if you know about Evo Moment 37, otherwise known as the Daigo Parry, you know that he actually had a problem with 4 because he felt that it was too like anybody could pick up and play this. There's a level of like there's no advancement. It's like the more you play, the like, oh, I'm getting more into this thing. No, as soon as you pick it up, you have everything. And there is something. I think there is something to be said. If you invest time in something, you should be able to show that you can play better. I think he was. I want to say he was speaking out of turn. I think there's things to learn in Street Fighter 4, but I could see where like there was kind of we're trying to pare this down almost to a level of 2. Like we can't just bring it to 2. I think similarly in a lot of ways, Soul Calibur 5 was really bad for the series because they slowed the combat down. Like even for fast fighters, it ran slower, which I don't mind necessarily a kind of methodical fighting game.
Right.
But that's not Soul Calibur. SoCal 6, I think, fixed that.
I think so too.
It's been one of the most complete games. SoCal 2 will always be like the one in my heart.
Yeah.
That was my
I
favorite.
love SoCal 2.
But 6 has done a tremendous job.
I think like if I was talking about real quick and talk about fighting games, like and also, and people say like, oh, this doesn't matter, and I think it does too, because I think like story for some of those games, because the bar got set higher and higher over the years, that story can matter depending on how deep it is. Like Soul Calibur 5 was like. Was it 4 or 5 that had the brother and the sister?
That was 5.
That was 5.
Yeah.
That was when they went, hey, all these people that you really like, we don't have those in here. Here's a person who is similar to them, but is different and not this person, so you're not going to like them as much anymore.
Or is the child of 2 of them.
Yeah.
Like, I think Xiab was Killick and Xianghua's son.
And it's like, it's perfectly fine. Like they did it. Mortal Kombat, where it's like, okay, here's Cassie Cage, but you can still fucking play Johnny Cage,
right?
And Sonya Blade,
like you can still play them. Like I want to still play. I have people that
and you
I'm
have costume options you unlock to play younger Johnny Cage if you want. Yeah, right. And then also the story mode in 11 is actually interesting because. I mean, it's not where you can pick any character and go through the game and have a little bit of a clip like they do in Street Fighter, in most of the Street Fighter games, but you get like a full story.
Yeah, I mean, that's what NetherRealm does. They did that with Injustice, where it's just like you're playing who you're going to play, like
in the story mode. And it also kind of like lets you get adjusted to how all the characters play too, which is also kind of cool. I also played one other game last week with Ethan. Called I Made a Game with Zombies in It.
So let me, as an outsider looking in, just look at Brady. So what happened was a guy in his punk band, they did a jam session, and it's like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a video game to play along with this entire jam session? And that's what happened. That's how it feels, at least.
Yeah. So another lyric, because the song plays throughout the whole gameplay, was I made this game. I used XNA. XNA was the developer kit for the Xbox 360 indie game developers. So it goes, I made a game using XNA. It cost $1. I hope you'll play. Just $1. Please play. I made a game with zombies in it.
We played
a game.
Okay,
with zombies in it.
I'm pretty sure there was a moment, for 2 minutes, I went blind.
Ethan somehow gained epilepsy through playing that game. Because it's normal. It's normal for a while. It's a great twin stick shooter. Like take Smash TV but pare it down a lot because it's like 8-bit. And
also it's free now, but originally it was only $1.
It was only $1, but it's free now.
When you boot up the game, it gives you like a be advised, this game contains flashing.
Would you like to turn it off? And you go yes, and it doesn't turn off the flashing lights.
Well, that's gonna just cause a lawsuit sometime.
So you have weapon pickups and things like that you have to pick them up, and you have like a little bit of a shield that you kind of have to keep because there's hordes and hordes of zombies and different and weird shit like later on.
There's floating masks that float towards you and then explode.
There's floating like columns with the happy faces on them.
There's centipede-esque monsters.
So the game Snake. Where the snake you play as a snake, except they're the actual thing that's killing you. That's great.
And somewhere in the middle of the game, because you can beat it in about 12 to 15 minutes. You're just trying to get a good high score. By the way, can't really beat it solo, but with 2 people, you can beat the game. About halfway through, Ska Studios that made the game, that's what he called the studio. Himself, he's the only one that made the game. The logo shows up, and then all of a sudden, that's when the lights start, and it's fucking crazy. They're all over the place. Then it calms down, and then they start again. Because there's a breakdown that happens in the song where they're just like jamming, and then all of a sudden it kicks back in.
It's almost like there's different waves of enemies. Like at first it's just zombies, and then after the zombies, there's then like different like shapes like being flown at you.
You have some gelatin things happening,
and then after that wave, it's gelatin and zombies.
Yeah,
and then after that, there's
gelatin, zombies, and snake, and
then asteroids.
You play a game of asteroids. Yeah, it's fantastic. I highly recommend.
Don't forget when you're playing Geometry Wars.
I highly recommend it. It's free on Steam.
If you wear glasses, take them off. It doesn't matter. You're not going to see regardless.
All right. Is that you, Jody?
That's me.
All right. Well, let's move it on since Ethan gave his 2 cents. Let's get the rest of his cents.
Talking about even some more weird shit.
Okay.
Cult of the Lamb.
Yeah.
Things are weird.
Yes.
But
I was
pretty
hoping
funny.
to say things are spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
Yes.
They got into the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Yes. We got the Kool-Aid. We got to the part where so we found our stone tablets for our commandments and our doctrinations.
And my brain is like he did a speed run for the Kool-Aid.
And we
Jonestown speed run.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
We've unlocked all of the rituals, and we're almost done with the game.
I want a T-shirt that just says we've unlocked all the rituals.
Spoiler alert: the entire temple turns demonic.
Yes.
And says,
No.
"Hey, guess what? There's another category of doctrinations for you to find. It's called the sin." We have unlocked a brewery so everyone can get drunk, a drum circle so everyone can dance.
Yes.
And we've unlocked the naked dancing ritual.
You need that.
You gotta have that.
Bianca found the mating tent.
Clip that.
I have to find the breeding pen. And I have to have both of those at the ready.
Oh my god.
So she's
Bianca found the mating tent. I want that on a shirt.
Yeah.
So things are weird and
Guess what I'm wearing to your wedding?
We got to find a tee up. We got to find a. Wait a minute. A friend of mine at work does vinyl printing on shirts.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we
shit.
go.
That's going to be one hell of a reception.
We're gonna
my
be
God.
wearing those underneath.
Yeah.
Reception time.
Yeah.
The priest goes, "You may now kiss the bride," and all 3 of y'all just stand up. And just
No,
grab
we're
the shirt.
we're all like impeccably dressed.
Yes.
Until the end of the night when the DJ comes on and like the lights start and we all come on. We all.
Eddie. Bianca found the mating pit.
What the fuck is that?
Oh, I love it when the studio audience shows up. It's great.
Oh man.
Yeah, things are weird and awesome and funny.
Okay. That all you got?
Me and Jody, we drafted. We drafted
Yeah,
a magic
remember when
set.
I was like really
okay.
pissed about Mystery Boosters 2 being so hard to find?
Yeah.
Ethan
I found
a
it.
box.
Okay.
So we drafted it tonight.
Oh, that's cool.
With some of our friends.
It was amazing and funny, and they have like these specialty test cards that aren't.
There's one
official.
test card in each pack.
Yes, they're not official like constructed play.
You can
legal
only
cards.
play them in the draft.
Yes.
Okay.
One of them is a spell that costs 0 mana called Indicate.
Okay.
The spell says target permanent.
That's all it does.
That's funny.
There's one
I like that.
I had that I cannot remember the name of.
It's like someone's rocket ship.
I had that too, but I had a test card that in Magic there's a actual card called Chaos Warp, and you target a permanent. Your opponent, the owner of that permanent, shuffles the permanent into their library and then reveals a card off the top. If it's a permanent, it goes onto the battlefield. If it's not a permanent, it stays on top of your library. This card exiles target creature, and then the opponent searches their sideboard randomly and reveals until they reveal a non-land permanent and casts it for free. And there were no lands in Cameron's sideboard, so he just got a thing out of it.
The coolest one, in my opinion, is the Colossal Dreadmaw.
Okay.
It is a creature that is just a 6/6 for 6 with trample. And it says you may cast other creatures as if they were also colossal dreadmaws. And it is a dinosaur riding a skateboard.
Okay,
it is
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. The wacky cards were kind of fun. Also, they put some really dumb reprints in the set. So I got to on like in 2 separate games on turn 3. Put a 4/4 dragon onto the battlefield with haste that says, whenever you attack with creatures, you add up how much power you're attacking with and generate that much mana, and the mana doesn't go away until the end of your turn.
Jesus.
And so on turn 1, I played a mana dork, and on turn 2, I played a land, and on turn 3, I played another land. And I tapped all those manas, and I played Natural Order, which says as an additional cost, sack a green creature, which my mana dork was green. Go search your library for a green creature and put it onto the battlefield. That dragon was green and red, so
Okay.
yeah,
Cameron's deck is probably like the dumbest thing I've seen him
it was
do.
pretty dumb.
There's a spell called Tinker that says, as an additional cost, sacrifice an artifact. Search your library for any artifact
and put it onto the battlefield.
There's a artifact called Bolus's Citadel.
Normally it costs 6 mana. It costs 3 and 3 black, so it's kind of hard to cast.
It has the ability. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast
play.
You may play the top card of your library. And instead of paying for its mana cost, you pay that
life
much
instead.
Oh, wow.
And it has an activated ability of sacrifice 10 permanents,
Non-land
permanents.
Yeah.
Target each opponent loses 10 life.
Right.
And you gain 10 life. It is absolutely dumb. He just goes land, pass, land, counterspell, land, artifact.
Well, he cast 2 things off of the Bolus' Citadel. He passed the turn. It got back to me. He played a land off of it. He cast another spell off of it and just activated it and killed me.
Yeah.
That was the fun that we had. Also, I eliminated Bianca from like on turn 3.
Yeah.
It wasn't turn 3, but it was basically turn 3, and it did the same thing to JT.
I had Indicate. I'm the real winner.
Yeah.
No, we opened money.
Yes.
You're the real winner.
Yeah.
That greater good is $50.
Yeah. There's the Lotus Petal by itself is 50, and
How much was the box?
for the entire thing, It was the booster box, 3 collector boosters from 3 different sets, a secret lair pack, and promo cards from MagicCon. $260.
That's not a bad deal, actually.
No.
Considering you opened up more than $260 in the cards.
Plus the secret lair cards
everything else is just extra at that point.
A whole lot of gravy and lanyap right there, so that's good.
But yeah, that's me.
All right. Jay, what you been up to?
Not a whole lot. I have I mentioned this game before, but it's finally gone into early access. TCG Card Shop Simulator. I actually played it last night while I was in the card shop for like weird Zen irony moments. There we go. It was very good. Again, right now it's a very kind of casual. It's like I'm building my card. They're buying cards. I'm saving up my money. I'm making the card shop
getting
better.
rid of the stinkies.
So they added a piece of furniture to the game where you load it up with the spray bottles, and if people come in with the green cloud, it just auto sprays them. I really
That's great.
I want to normalize hosing people down with antiseptics and spray bottles of cleaner. I just really Ozium for all. Kamala Harris, if you win, I want Ozium for all, please.
Cameron.
That's the stopper? That's the one where no one has a fucking response to that?
Cameron, I have a new position option for McNarbs for hire.
Ozium sprayer?
Ozium sprayer. Get someone on it.
Yeah.
Well, then.
All card shops.
Yes.
Get an Ozium sprayer.
Air freshener.
Some
But
of them
yeah, it's a machine. You load it up. Like I have it right by the door, so as soon as they
It's
come in the
motion
door,
detector.
it's motion detection.
And
Boom,
depending on
done.
how tall or short you are, right in the eyes.
Yes, it's great. Whenever you spray people, they all gotta shake around. It's like no. So far, game of the year, 100%. Just on that feature. There we go. 100%. 10 out of 10.
Wild.
Good.
That sounds good.
So that's good there. I picked up Canvas, which we'll be playing at the shop next week, which is really cool. If you've played anything like Mystic Veil, and I think that's pretty much it. If you played Mystic
There's
Veil,
a couple of others that have actually come out after that.
That's the one that in my head.
Was it 3,000 Scoundrels or something Scoundrels? 1,000 Scoundrels or something like that.
No, it's like 3,000 something Scoundrels because that's how many combinations you can create from that.
That one you can do it. There was also a. I want to say there was some pirate game where you could build the crew and do that started actually kind of taking off. All Play I just saw something where they're coming out with the game where you can
3,000 Scoundrels.
3,000 Scoundrels. Yeah. I heard that game wasn't that good, but I've heard very good things about Canvas.
I really do like Mystic Veil a lot. So
yeah.
Well, for me, Canvas. What I like about that is that the combinations create like these paintings.
Yeah,
and they can
that
be different.
sounds
So
really
it's
cool.
It's part of like your creativity's involved in that.
Yeah,
and
the mechanics I don't think are the
interested
same
for
as
this.
Mystic Veil, but
Right.
it has the same building a card type thing.
So
Which sounds very interesting.
excited about that, and then probably for me the biggest thing, and one of the things for Brady this week, Nightcrawler dropped for Marvel Champions.
Nice.
I love his set, and
Yeah.
I love the protection cards that came with him. And I think with a few tweaks, if you have anything, I think the spider stuff, not the spider stuff, the Doctor Strange protection cards I think would work well with him. Where he's just he has base defense 3. If you get his dueling swords out, he goes to 4 defense. He also gets +1 attack, which gives him 2 attack. But then the big thing is he gets retaliate.
Yep.
The main driver for his deck is the card Bamf, which you can attach it to pretty much any enemy on the board. When they go to attack, you can sub in him as the defender, and he doesn't exhaust to defend against that person. Mr. Eddie is leaving the building. We are now audienceless here in the building. But going back to that, so you have this way of just jumping on and like basically making threats or things that would be threats for other people you can handle outside of your stuff. His support card, Kurt's Chapel, is one of my favorite right now in the game because when he takes the recovery action, you can then exhaust it, and you can choose a player, they draw a card, which means you can draw a card, or if someone else needs a card, and you're like, I think that's tremendous.
Yeah.
He has a very solid kit.
And it gives him +1 recovery, so when he does recover, he's recovering for 4 instead of 3.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think if you throw that and
which is almost half of his hit points because he has 9 hit points. So
yeah, I think if you throw that in with X Mansion, where he gets another recovery from that, and then you throw in Mutant Education, where he can get all of his good cards back in the deck, so you can start looking for stuff. I think it's great. He can even fish for Bamfs with a lot of stuff that's just innate to him.
Yeah.
And Day Tripper, I think is her name.
Yes.
Which is his ally. You get to look for a Bamf card, put it on somebody, and then you do 1 damage to everything that has a Bamf card on it.
Yeah.
So
and she only costs 2, and she is a 2 thwart 2 attack, which is really good stats.
and
for,
one consequential
for
one consequential for each one.
Yeah. She only has 2 hit points, but for a 2 cost, like that is really good. That is really well costed. Most
rate.
Yeah, and she gets like. She's a good body, and she does something that works very well with Nightcrawler's kit, which is
value and synergy is what you really want.
Yeah,
100%.
It's really good because allies are kind of busted in the game, and she is a really good ally. Yeah.
So I'm really excited to get that together.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for you to finally get your pack of it.
Yeah, whenever I do, I guess. But yeah, I think he's going to be one of, if not the strongest, like protection hero in the game. Like that's just mainly going to be with protection. But I think you can also do some interesting things. I've seen some people talk about doing some stuff with him in aggression, which can be interesting. But like in protection, like hit that the cards that he came with and just his kit, but even just the cards that he came with is going to change. People are talking about how it's going to change the way you run protection. Like you're actually going to be trying to like hit and defeat things in the villain phase, which doesn't happen very often.
There's a card in there. It's max 1 per player, which means if you've got multiple copies, you can hand it off. You could pay for and give it to other people. Maybe continue it. Not so much so like with some other cards of that variety, like martial arts training, which gives +1 attack to anybody who's got on it. That's a much more straightforward kind of deal. But if you manage to kill something in the villain phase, you can exhaust that card, draw 2 cards. Cards are your resources. Cards are things you want to play. And if you've got 2 of them, at the very least, you have 2 resources ready to go and play on the next turn when it comes up to your turn. And you've defeated something that's already in there, and you're built to kind of defeat stuff in there. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I'm absolutely in love with this pack. I think they did a tremendous job with it.
Yeah.
And how much was that?
For as far as cost, like 17 base, but with the discount I have at the shop, 15.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for me.
All right. So I got on a little bit of kick looking for different kinds of RPGs. I've been watching some videos. I've been kind of looking for, because the technically new edition, but they're not calling it 6th edition, but it's not necessarily 5th edition D&D. All of that started to roll out. And I just don't feel like having to learn the new shit in D&D because there's a lot of shit in D&D that you have to remember.
There's so much.
Yeah, and having to like figure out what's changed, I just don't want to do that. So
how much of it is actually new? I thought it was like
I don't know.
I think it's like a 5.5.
They're calling it a 5.5, but they have changed a lot of shit. They keep saying that like you can do anything that's a 5e thing you can use with this. I don't know. I'm not going to do the research to see what the difference is because I just don't care. Because if I want to do it that bad, and really the only reason that I could think of going back to like just playing D&D is some of the modules some of the modules or the adventures that I have. Just because I don't feel like changing them into something else. That's pretty much it. And I might not ever even do that. But I have been looking for things that could be seen as like substitutes for D&D. If you want to play that fantasy role playing, what are some things that you can do? And I have started really looking at some things that I found some like smaller pared down RPGs in one sense. I've actually bought this book of this system called Cairn. It's a very like pared down simple system.
My apologies. CAIRN, not KAREN.
Yeah.
It's a totally different RPG.
It's based on another system called Into the Odd, which I also want to check out. It's a very interesting system. It's like very dark fantasy. You can get this for free on DriveThruRPG. It's classless. What you are is basically more towards what kind of gear you have, and it uses this encumbrance system. It has a whole lot of like little interesting things that for like short role playing sessions, not entire campaigns maybe, but it does sound very interesting. That same guy also made another one that's using kind of the same system, but it's like tweaks of it, called Liminal Horror: The Investigators. It is also free on DriveThruRPG, where you're playing like Call of Cthulhu or like X-Files type investigators, which also is very interesting. But the cool thing about Cairn and Liminal Horror, any of the things that this guy has done, I can't remember the name of him off the top of my head, but you can make a character in like 5 minutes because it's just rolling on a whole bunch of charts to find like everything, and it's kind of interesting because because as I was watching people like create characters, you kind of can create the story of the character from what you're getting. You're like, okay, this person's like this, so that makes sense. This person's cowardly, but they're braggadocious, so I can see that. Okay, I can understand how. So you can see how everything works. They seem to be both of those seem to be very interesting. I also downloaded the quick start kit for Shadow Dark, which is another dark fantasy RPG that works more on the D&D system, but pares it down and simplifies it, but also gives you a lot of stuff. I definitely one day would want to pick up the full rules of that. I just don't feel like pre-ordering it because that's what you have to do because it's out of print. But I got that because I want to try that because there's some interesting things in there. I've looked at I've just been watching a lot of videos where they've talked about stuff. And I think I might have told you the wrong name earlier, Jody. There's one that's Ghosts and I called it Ghosts and Goblins, but I don't think it's Ghosts and Goblins. It's Ghosts and something, and it's basically like it's very similar. It works very similarly to Cairn and Liminal Horror, but it's about you're basically a Ghostbuster. Which sounds very interesting. I've just been been on a kick of like finding all of these like smaller alternate RPGs.
Yeah, I'm always big into like not D&D.
Yeah. I like D&D, but I've also like begun to not like it all that much and be kind of tired of it.
Right.
And just looking for. The only thing about D&D is that it can do like a wide variety of things, because if you want to do a heist thing, you can do a heist thing. If you want to do a just generic fantasy, you can do that. If you want to do a darker fantasy thing, you can kind of do that. But but a lot of things you kind of have to, I'm going to use this one if I want to do the dark fantasy. I'm going to do this one if I want to do more heist stuff, which is fine with me, but like I'm just kind of don't feel like
there's also
with
like
D&D
whether
anymore.
you're new or have been playing them for a while, there's some RPGs that you have to keep up with a lot of math compared to others. Just like if you're a caster, you're like, okay, how many spells can you cast in a day? How many versions of this one spell can you cast in a day?
Yeah.
Would you like to cast it at a higher level? Well, you have to take that off your spell skills and slots, and all that.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of stuff that you have to worry about, and I've liked reading about like say Shadow Dark and Cairn. If you want the way that you have a spell is you have a spell book that holds that knows one spell, and you got to hold this in two hands and do the spell, and then you take some exhaustion. And you might be able to, if in the right circumstances, cast a stronger version of it, but you got to talk with but all of them are like a sentence. It's like, you can see through walls, or you can float, 3 feet in the air. What all does this how all does this work? We'll talk with the GM about that, how all that works. So it gives you a lot of like leeway to like figure things out with that. But yeah, those are pretty interesting that I've been looking at. There's a couple of other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are the main ones because I've actually like got those now. In a bit, the Cairn and the Little Horror are interesting because everything works really with your inventory, and they have alternate sheets where you can like actually cut out like, oh, I have a sword. Here's a cut out piece of paper that's a sword that shows, okay, it takes up this much space in my inventory. Because you don't want to be full on inventory, because if you're full on inventory, then your HP, which is your hit protection, not your hit points, goes down to 0. So it's much easier for you to like take a shot that like drops you.
Yeah. And that's sort of like, having a negative for being over encumbered is actually like a rule. That was in like OG D&D that like first and second edition good DMs would actually pay attention to that because you had only so much. Like it's like, all right, so what are you carrying with you? Like how much food are you carrying and all that? Because after you get past a certain weight capacity, you start taking negatives on fatigue and things like that.
Yeah. And they even have like a thing in Cairn where it's like you can hire hirelings. You can do hirelings to carry your shit.
Yeah.
But then you might just not have easy access to every single thing.
Right.
So you gotta be careful with that. And they even are like, hey, if somebody drops, you can just say like your hireling takes over, like because it's kind of easy to die. The really cool thing is if you take damage that drops your HP to perfectly 0, you take a scar, which can range, you roll on a table and it could range from you get a scar over some body part or you lose an arm. It could kind of be anything, and it gives you a negative with that. But once you heal or stabilize, you get some bonus. Usually you get like bonus HP. I was telling Jody my favorite one is Doomed, where you almost died but you didn't. So Doom is kind of coming for you. So the next time you would take what's called a critical hit, which is when it goes down into your stats, your strength stat. You have to make a save. If you fail that save, you die horribly. If you don't, you roll 3d6 and you get that much HP to your max.
I love it.
It does like very interesting things like that. Yeah, I'm thinking of like later on, probably with the Liminal Horror, I just got to read it a little bit more. And I think it even comes with like a little, not an adventure, but it's like here's the bones of like an adventure. I'm thinking of on here doing that maybe next year is probably when we'll end up doing that. But yeah, so that's one of the things that I've been one of my obsessions lately. I get those every once in a while, but I also watched a movie, and I'm glad Jay got political a little bit earlier because we're gonna get a little bit more political. I watched Civil War.
Okay, another A24 movie.
Another A24 movie. This is Alex Garland's newest movie. Alex Garland is one of my favorite directors who is currently working. If you know Annihilation, Ex Machina, he wrote 28 Days Later.
Oh. Damn, he's also one of mine then.
Yeah. and he's writing, and he has written 28 Years Later, which is coming out.
That's the next one
with Danny Boyle. I think he wrote 28 weeks later, I think.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah, really love him. I've loved all of his movies. I was a little bit trepidatious to watch this movie because I've heard very mixed things about it. Because it is in the near future where an American Civil War breaks out again. Now, a lot of people criticize this movie for not really taking a side. But I think it's the marketing and some of the things that Garland said that led people to think that this was going to be a more political movie than it actually is. I think it's a pretty solid movie, but you have to go into it understanding that it's really more of kind of an action movie following war journalists than it is a movie that's trying to say anything about what a American Civil War in the near future would be.
Gotcha.
And I think it's just because like nowadays things are very politically charged, and a setting like that and not actually saying much, because it really doesn't say much. You have to kind of extrapolate some things, but it doesn't really do much in the way of explaining the beliefs of either side of the conflict. But I think that's more really because it's more about like journalism and war journalists and the bullshit that they have to deal with.
Right, for sure.
Because it's very well acted. Kirsten Dunst is the main character. She plays a war photographer, and her team is she works with another guy, and they're trying to get to Washington D.C. from New York to interview the president before the Western forces take over, because that's going to happen. Like it's just a matter of time. So they're trying to get there because they want to get that story. And they take on this younger girl who is just starting. She's like in her early 20s, and she's just starting. One of them reluctantly, one of them not reluctantly, kind of take her under their wing. And I think it's a pretty solid movie. I don't think it's his best movie. I think Ex Machina and Annihilation especially, are better. It might be better than Men. But I don't know. I liked all his movies. I thought this one was pretty good. I didn't love it quite as much as the other ones.
They can't all be home runs.
Yeah, but it was still pretty solid. He does a really good job. The cinematography is really great, and he does a really good job with shooting action. Like you feel like you're there. There's a couple of times where they're like in the middle of the fighting, and you're like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, like,
right.
Why are you like right there? Like, I understand you got to get the shot, but shit, you're like right there.
like Black Hawk Down or something.
There will be soldiers like being shot at, and they're like up against the wall, and they're like right behind the soldier. They're not like stepping.
Right.
And I feel like that's probably pretty accurate to how war photographers actually are. So that's really, really interesting. And yeah, what it says more about like journalism and war journalism than it says about what an actual civil war is. I think some of that is also Alex Garland's British, so he probably doesn't have like the greatest grasp on American politics as somebody who's lived in the bullshit.
Right.
But I thought it was solid. I think it's worth watching.
It's on Hulu.
It's on Max.
It's on Max.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say check it out. Like I said, it's not one of his best, but if you do like that, check out his other stuff, because his other stuff is great.
Amazing.
Is great. I love it.
I love Ex Machina. Ethan, have you ever seen Ex Machina?
I have not.
Bro,
Ex Machina is a good one. I like Annihilation better, but
I've not seen.
Well, they're so different.
Yes.
Ex Machina is a bottle movie.
Yeah.
And Annihilation is philosophical and everything else.
Yeah. But he makes gorgeous movies.
He doesn't have a typical movie yet.
No, he doesn't.
No,
like,
because
you could say science fiction because he's gone to the science.
He does lean with science fiction,
town.
but Men isn't science fiction. Men's just horror.
Horror, yeah.
This is an action movie. There's nothing scientific about science fiction about this. It's not like it's near enough future to where they're still just using this regular shit,
right?
Regular,
of course,
armaments.
Yeah.
But yeah, he started with like his first two were sci-fi, and then he did these other two branching out movies. He makes movies where there's some. And I think that's probably why people were a little bit disappointed with this one, because he does make movies that are like that do have some kind of interesting
usually
idea
have a message.
They have a message or an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Ex Machina is about what does it mean to be human.
Right.
Annihilation is kind of also what does it mean to be human, but asking it from a different side.
Men is like trauma, and
men is like how dealing with trauma
processing
and processing that and the bullshit that women have to put up with on a daily basis. And people, I think, were expecting him to actually say something about like a civil war. And I think it's really, if you come into it more thinking of this is just kind of window dressing and it's more about the journalists and the on the ground shit.
Sure.
I think you'll enjoy it a lot better. If you're coming in it wanting him to say something about American politics, he's not really going to say that.
Right.
So yeah, that's been me. I think that's it for everybody. Jay, do we have any feedback?
No feedback this week, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the bus, whether it is today, tomorrow, tonight, early evening, or late morning, which I think would probably be like 11:30. I don't know. But if you would like to leave us feedback on this or any of our previous episodes, travelersontheomnibus at gmail.com. Again, that is travelers, 1L on the omnibus at gmail.com. Jody, how else can they engage with us?
Spotify.
Yes. Take part with any of our polls and also comments on all of our episodes, whether it's this one or our backlog, which is growing. Oh my God. I think we're up, like we're closing in 120s, like for regular episodes, not counting our rest stops. Also, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're hearing, but you would like to share that with other people, but they don't listen to podcasts on the same channels you do, we're available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, iHeartRadio, and YouTube through our channel, Travelers on the Omnibus.
And with that, that's going to lead us into our main topic. Tonight's main topic is going to be about sequels, but not just any old sequels. The sequels that failed to either live up to the what was given before, or that just didn't do well. And this is not necessarily like financial failure sequels. I'm certain that we'll talk about some that actually did well. To be honest, I didn't even look at that, but we're going to be talking about sequels that failed, and we're going to talk about like why these sequels themselves failed. I think mostly we're going to be talking about movies, but I also when we talked about this, we opened it up to kind of like any kind of media. I had a trouble finding anything, but like I was able to talk about like some video games. I was able to find some stuff about that.
Yeah, sure.
Books I didn't have because if I didn't like the sequel was shit, I didn't really go into reading it.
Right,
so
of course.
I probably didn't read it, so I didn't have anything for that.
To me, when it comes to like discussing sequels, it's always like movies comes first and then followed by video games.
Yeah.
It's not really,
and it can be difficult with books too, because if it's part of like an ongoing series, it's not really a sequel. Like Dresden Files, if they had a bad book somewhere in the middle of that, then
and books are also a time investment. So you kind of sunk cost fallacy as far as your time goes.
Sure.
Also kind of gets kind of a
right.
as well.
That's
but
fair.
With books, it would be more like a series lost the plot is I think what's going to happen most with those.
Right.
So it's easier for you to like diagnose the problem when it comes to like movies and video games secondarily. So yeah, I basically, the way I did things is I kind of just wrote down some sequels that I knew sucked and just thought about like why did these suck, and just coming from that, just thinking about like what are some reasons and stuff like that.
I took a different tack. I looked at sequels that I thought were actually good, or at the very least entertaining, but had to live up to a lot. With the come around.
Yeah, I did. Be the third week in which The Godfather 3 is mentioned.
I was not going to mention it, but now you've mentioned it, so yes, this is.
I didn't mention it, but because I knew that we had talked about it, but it has been brought up, so we are there. Must by law, Francis Ford Coppola is gonna look at us perfectly,
or he'll metropolis.
It's great that we all have our own like system for this, because I've got a breakdown of like commercial, critical, and fan Venn diagram written down of the movies that I wrote down.
You were putting together red string and shit.
Yeah, I was.
He's the conspiracy theorist with the tin hat.
So I guess since it was mentioned, I think we can really quickly talk about and I guess if you haven't watched any or listened to any of our previous episodes, and if so, why fucking listen to them? we can talk about like Godfather 3, some of the reasons why that failed. Part of that is definitely like they had an idea going into the movie, and I know this because I've read a couple of books about the making of all the Godfathers. They had an idea going into the movie, and they had to change because Robert Duvall wanted more money than they wanted to give him, so they cut him out of the movie.
That was an issue with a lot of American zoetrope films around at that time.
Well, in the second, in part 2, the actor who played Clemenza wanted more money, and he also wanted to write his own lines, and they were like, "Nope, fuck you, you're dead now."
Yeah, like you're dead at the start of the movie, and then Frank Pentangeli, ladies and gentlemen.
You just got Johnny Cage,
but and that's easier to do with somebody like Clemenza, who is more of a side character than Robert Duvall's character, Tom Hagen, right?
Yeah, Tom Hagen. Yeah.
Because it was going to be Hagen versus Son versus not Sonny, but Michael. And they had to completely redo that because Robert Duvall wanted more money than they wanted to give him. Also, some things fell through where Winona Ryder was supposed to play Michael's daughter. And I think she got sick or something, and she had to pull out. So, keeping the nepotism train running, he was like, "Well, let me put my daughter in there," and she was horrible. I'm glad Sofia Coppola decided to just do directing because she's a good director. She is a bad actress,
right?
And it's also one of those. I think it also compounds where there was a lot of time in between the first and the second Godfather. There wasn't very much time. There was just a few years,
right?
And then there was like 20 years between the
between 2 and 3.
Between 2 and 3,
right?
And oftentimes when you go back, we can talk about some other sequels, that go back at a much longer time than they probably should have,
right?
And why though, and that oftentimes causes it to not work as well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's that. Does anybody have one that they want to talk about?
Yeah. So I want to talk about.
He has a whole conspiracy board.
I do. I want to talk about my breakdown, and we'll play like a little a game for each one of these.
Okay.
Okay. Called "Did it make money? Did it break even? Or did it lose money? Yeah, break or bust. All right. So. We've talked about some of these movies in passing a lot over the years of doing this show. And one of them that's come up a lot is Highlander 2.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's listening who's never seen the second movie, maybe you've seen the first one. Highlander is a movie where you have Christopher Lambert, who plays a Scottish Highlander.
Yes.
Which is why the movie is called Highlander.
Yes.
Because the whole plot is that there are a core group of people that are quote unquote immortals, and they're basically playing like a game of chess over millennia in basically Mortal Kombat before Mortal Kombat to decide on who is who deserves the ultimate gift, basically earning the knowledge of all of the previous foes that have been defeated in Mortal Kombat, and the end, the winner of the unsanctioned tournament, as it were, receives all the knowledge of all of the previous immortals, and also gets mortality and can move on with their life.
Yeah.
And then Highlander 2, they were like, "Fuck it, they're aliens."
Yep.
From the planet Zeist.
From the planet Zeist.
The main bad guy's name is General Katana,
played by Michael Ironside.
That part I don't mind.
Yes.
Right. And then you have an old Christopher Lambert, because it's like 2080 or something.
Yeah, it's in the future. The original one was like modern day.
They went so hard with the lore on this. The ozone layer is gone.
Yeah.
And an evil corporation has shielded the Earth with their super shield.
You forgot the biggest part of that. He's the one who developed it.
He developed it. They Einsteined it, basically. And this corporation's like sapping everybody's money, all while this conspiracy is going on, that the shield has been up for so long, the ozone layer is actually healed.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that the aliens go back to kill McLeod from the alien planet, show up. He accidentally kills one, and just all of a sudden he's 30 years old again.
Yep. Funny how that works.
And back to being immortal immediately. Okay, so with Highlander 2, both the regular and director's cut. So what do you think the critics said?
The critics didn't like it.
Absolute dog shit.
What do you think the fans said?
The fans didn't like it either.
Right. How much money did it make? Did it lose money? Did it make money? Or did it break even?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it lost money.
I'm going to say that it broke even.
I shall abstain.
I'm assuming this is a
because
thing
either way I'll be insulted.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm going to guess that this is like one of those things like people talked about this and they're like, I have to see how
I'm going to preface before I go any further into any more of these, which I have 9. So this and most of these movies, if not all of them, existed before not only social media but the internet as we know it existed.
Well, word of mouth exists.
Yes, but it was a slower word of mouth because when this movie came out, there was 1.5 billion less people on the planet. It doubled its budget.
Jesus.
What the?
That's terrible.
Yeah. Its budget of like 20 million, it made like 40
now,
or 45.
I'm certain that you don't have it, but Highlander 3, I'm certain lost money.
It probably did.
A lot of times back in the day, especially, that would happen where the second one, even if it was bad, would make a decent amount of money.
Because people didn't know.
But when they went back to that well again,
right,
it was like, oh, shit.
Typically, and that's later on, I'm going to explain how that happened in another thing. So...
It made money.
It made money.
It made money.
I told you, it doubled its budget.
No, the third one.
Yeah, the third one
the
made
third
money.
one did make?
Yeah.
Jesus
It
fucking
had
Christ.
Mario Van Peebles in it,
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's actually, they give up on the alien thing in the third one, I think.
Yeah. After the third one, when the third one happens, they just completely forget
that never happened.
But I'm sorry. What were you gonna say? No. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I have Highlander 2, of course, written down.
Yeah.
And I wrote down that Highlander 2's problem was that the story was already told, the story was finished.
Yeah.
And they decided to go back to it, so they had to
because it made a bunch of money
because they had to engineer a way for this to actually not be true.
Right.
And that's basically. Every sequel after that just falls into another category of what I call the same thing but worse. Yeah. Where it's just the first movie over again. In fact, they would show like scenes, like there would always be like a flashback scene where he's back in the Scottish Highlands and then he bangs some chick, so we get some boobs in here because it's that time where you got to show some boobs,
right?
And then we find out, there's one more immortal, and then he defeats the immortal and wins, and then no, there's one more immortal. Like that's how every sequel to Highlander was after the first one.
A couple more based off of like Brady's like the same but worse.
Yeah.
A description of Highlander 3, even though we only talked about Highlander 2. An evil immortal swordsman, Mario Van Peebles, catches up to his sorcerer foe, Christopher Lambert, at a deserted New Jersey refinery.
That's all you need.
If you could not put together a string of words that would be less desirable than what I just read.
I don't think I watched that one. I think I watched like 4 and 5.
After me explaining...
if you watched 5, you watched The Source. Oh my God.
After the batshit craziness of 2, the followed up with Warehouse Fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was 4 the one where they got the guy from the TV series? Mm-hmm. That was actually okay.
Okay, then I've watched... Yeah. I definitely watched that one. And then I watched one that was pretty much just like they found out the one like another immortal who had been like buried underground or something came back. I can't remember. It's been so long. I got obsessed with Highlander for a little while. And I also watched the TV show.
I love the TV show actually up until
the notion of Highlander I think is very cool. The idea that there's this group of immortal beings that exist among us and are in this secret war to eventually capture the prize, which even they themselves don't totally know what the prize is.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's fantastic. The original movie starts out with a wrestling match.
Freebirds, yeah.
That the Freebirds are there at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's
Everything
a great
about
opening.
that is amazing.
It's a great opening too.
Yeah.
So moving on
Okay.
to a newer movie,
Okay.
we have Space Jam 2.
Oh, yeah.
Sir, that's Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yeah.
Which
Or,
is, as we all
Jam
know,
2.
is a sequel to Tron Legacy.
or as I call it, Space Jam. Hey, check out all the shows and shit that we have on Max.
That's really what it was.
This
This is Warner Brothers, the IP.
They didn't have Pepe Le Pew in the movie, and I'm okay with that decision. However, they did have the Droogs from Clockwork Orange.
Just chilling in the audience.
Just chilling in the audience.
hanging out.
Because everything, its source material doesn't matter. It's just product now. It's just content.
Yeah.
I want to say it also had like Austin Powers also.
It was like everything that
the
Warner
Iron
Brothers
Giant
owned.
just like was there and did nothing.
Everything that Warner Brothers owned, they just shoved in there because they wanted people to go watch Max.
It was like
Goddamn.
the highly touted Steven Spielberg,
Ready Player One.
Yeah, glorified greatest sci-fi epic made in the past 20 years.
Or as I like to call it, hey, I get that reference, the movie.
That's all it was.
Lola Bunny is wearing a T-shirt where I can't see her titties. This is the worst movie of all time.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So
Jesus God
So
Almighty.
Space Jam 2.
It's the worst movie of all time, but not for that fucking reason.
Yeah,
there's
right.
a lot of
Fucking
bad,
incel.
Yeah.
just a bunch of shit. So yeah, they just try to use some jokes that were sort of like from the first movie.
It took way too fucking long to come out.
Yeah.
They've been talking about this like
forever.
since LeBron started. When
Yeah.
he started in basketball,
Right.
they were like, "Ooh, let's do LeBron in a Space Jam
movie."
And it took. I don't even know how fucking long he's been in the NBA.
What?
He started when I was in high school.
Right.
Like he started when I was in high school, like 2003 or 4, I think.
Make or break. Did it make money, lose money, or break even?
It lost money. I'm pretty certain.
I want to say it made money.
With Warner Brothers, does it matter right now? Like,
Well,
again, I abstain.
And I don't even
that's
remember
fine.
if
I
this one
abstain.
came
That's
out
fine.
in theaters.
Yeah, it came out in theaters.
It was around right after like the pandemic stuff started lifting.
Okay, yeah.
So they barely made money. So they practically broke even
'Cause
on it, at the box
Which,
office.
and to be honest, that means that it lost money because they usually
Marketing.
spend the budget of the movie on
Right.
marketing. So if you ever see a movie that like, oh, it broke even, or oh, it made just a little bit more, that's usually why they call it a flop, because marketing ended up putting them in the hole.
Critics,
Nope.
No,
fans.
Nope.
No.
Yeah.
No, it
you're
was
right.
it was also a soulless cash grab.
Right. Yeah.
Which is also another category that I have.
It's based off of the nostalgia of people that enjoyed the first one.
Yeah.
And also the little kids that watched Looney Tunes.
Yes.
Here,
Which no little kids watch Looney Tunes nowadays.
To answer your question, yes, 2003.
Okay, yeah.
the deeper cuts are coming, but we got to go with an obvious one here.
Okay.
I'm going to skip some of these because they're not relevant.
Yeah.
Son of the Mask.
Oh god.
That was a decade after The Mask.
It
Yeah.
was 10 years after The Mask. It didn't have Jim Carrey. That was a problem.
It didn't have anything having to do except for The Mask. And they put Loki as the main villain, and it wasn't even like you didn't even like that wasn't even like clearly established in
Right.
No.
In
the
lore.
first movie.
Yeah.
It
There
was just
wasn't much
a random-
lore in
Yeah.
the movie in
It
the
was just a
original
random
movie.
mask.
It
that
was about
showed
how
up.
crazy can you do shit with Jim Carrey,
Right.
and that's what the movie was. Also, the movie is nothing like the comic, which is very dark.
I love the comic. I've read the
I've seen
comic.
tidbits of
The comic is brutally dark.
Here's a question that I don't have on any of the other ones because I thought this was fucking crazy. All right. First off, I'm sure you're already going to guess whether or not it made or lost money.
Yeah, it lost money.
No.
It did. It lost half of its budget.
Yep.
Which was, take a guess. It is Son of the Mask. The first movie was like $35 million or something like that. But it was also 1994, I think.
I'm gonna say
95.
50.
Okay.
20 million.
Their budget was $100 million.
What the
damn.
fuck?
Yeah, another thing. This one falls under the category of took too long to come out.
Yeah.
Soulless cash grab.
Uh-huh.
Also, horrifically cut
made.
corners on all of the special effects.
Yeah.
Whereas
The fucking dog.
most
is just-
of the special effects in The Mask, which came out in the early 90s, still hold up pretty well because it's so wacky and over the top.
It was also just like I'm going to compare some of the special effects to Jurassic Park CGI only because they had to invent CGI technology for The Mask, the original Mask movie, because it didn't exist.
Well, it also helped that like Jim Carrey's like
He carried the movie.
Jim
of
Carrey.
course.
Jim Carrey's like goofy
carried the
attitude
movie.
and his like mannerism also helped towards
The
that.
Mask with anybody else would not have worked as
No.
well.
So another quick one here. Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows.
Ooh, yeah.
So the original movie was a found footage film that cost them $25,000 to make because it was literally 2 cameras and 3 people that nobody knew.
Yeah, they basically tortured people in the woods.
In the
and that's
woods.
how they made
It was literally like a handful of people, including the crew.
They would like interrupt them at night while they're sleeping, so they never got a good night's sleep.
Right, which you got that
They
on
would just
camera.
like leave clues as to be like, head this way and do kind of this, and that's how they made the movie.
And they made a shit ton of money off of it.
And the people who starred in the movie didn't hardly make any because they pretended like they were dead.
Pretty much.
And then Blair Witch 2 said, "Fuck all that. This is just a regular ass movie.
They're just a regular horror movie.
This is just
Well,
a
I
regular."
think even then, I think that was a script that had been floating. And
Yeah.
it's like, call it, because I think the initial was just Book of Shadows.
Yes.
And then someone was like, throw the Blair Witch name on it.
Yeah, and then you could tell that they added all the Blair Witch shit because
The guy who played the lead on Burn Notice is in that movie.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
all I can remember about
yeah,
that.
I don't
just remember there's a
anything
There's a
about
hot
it.
goth.
I saw it in a-
There's
yeah.
a hot goth chick. That's the only thing I remember.
I saw it in a theater.
Stereotypical goth chick.
It was a movie where again, and I'm gonna get into that on the last one I talk about, but I got one more in between that. Again, before social media and the actual internet really was a thing, you saw the first one.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is different. It's different, all right. So critical, the
Nope.
critics
Panned it.
hated it. The fans of horror movies hated it.
Yep.
So did it make or break on the budget?
No idea. I'm gonna say bust.
I think it lost money.
They tripled their budget.
Jesus fucking
But
Christ.
it's a horror movie, so their budget was low.
Yeah.
But they still tripled their budget.
That's the thing. So, little inside baseball. Horror movies are usually incredibly cheap to make.
They are.
Very rarely
Compared to
do
everything
their
else.
budgets get super high. That's why Blumhouse is a thing. They try and make a movie for as cheap as possible, and then they make a ridiculous profit on it.
Now, this is going to be a super hot take. So I've got this on there because it's divisive.
Yeah. Well, just real
go
quick. Book of Shadows, soulless cash grab.
Yeah.
It also completely forgets the original spirit, the spirit of the original movie. It completely undoes all of that. Most likely, like Jay said, not even originally connected, was rewritten to tenuously connect to the original movie. I think some of what was that one? The Blair Witch was actually a little bit better of a sequel. I didn't watch it.
I haven't seen that one.
I want to say it's just Blair Witch.
Well, there's one that was Blair Witch, but then there was one called The Blair
They
Witch.
remade it.
I think Blair Witch was supposed to be like a soft remake of the movie. If I'm wrong, write in and tell me that I'm wrong.
Email us if you will.
travelersontheomnibus at gmail.com. Caddyshack 2.
Ooh, I actually just watched a thing about this.
I cannot put an input in.
You haven't even seen the first
Nope.
one.
Yeah, that one I'm almost certain from watching. Was it Hats Off Entertainment? That was the channel that I just watched this.
Yeah, I saw that a while back. Yeah.
I'm pretty certain this lost money. because they didn't get anybody of the original back except for Chevy Chase.
That Jackie Mason, which was like, I mean, what a choice.
Yeah. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rodney Dangerfield had signed on to do this because he wanted to do Rover Dangerfield, which was an adult cartoon where he was a dog.
Yeah.
But Rodney Dangerfield. Do you even know who Rodney Dangerfield is?
Probably not.
He's literally going to his phone. So the answer is no. The answer is no.
Probably not.
No,
That's
not
funny.
probable.
No.
100%
That's
no.
funny.
Oh wait, hang on. These like bug eye, beady eyes kind of reminded me of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you on?
What
are
else
you on
would he have
drugs?
watched?
The college movie, maybe.
Back to School.
Back to School.
Yeah. No.
He did
I don't
stand
remember
up.
him in
Sam
anything else.
that's I think was one of Sam Kinnison's big breaks. I still remember
Yeah,
that classroom
he got
scene.
that because
It's
of
like,
Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah,
but yeah,
'cause Rodney loved him to death.
Rodney
yeah.
signed on to do that, and because they told him he would get to make Rover Dangerfield,
Right.
And then he read the script and was like, "Fuck this, I'm out. I can't do this shit." And then they got really mad at him. The studio got really mad at him, and so they like slashed the budget of Rover Dangerfield to almost nothing, and fucked him over on that.
Dude, I forgot that Dan Aykroyd was in this movie.
Oh yeah, he
And
takes the place of
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Replaced one SNL alumni with another.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's
Nothing in that. I remember watching this.
Very rarely is. And I like Dan Aykroyd, but
Right.
Dan Aykroyd is very rarely a good substitute for Bill Murray.
And he's not always good in comedy movies either.
Ethan, do you know who Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray are?
yes,
He
I know
knows.
who they
He knows
are.
Bill Murray.
Okay,
Have you seen The Great Outdoors?
I was gonna.
I have seen The Great Outdoors.
It was gonna be really funny if he didn't know who those people were.
Yeah. So Caddyshack lost half of its budget.
Yeah, it lost a ton of money.
It was again soulless
Cash grab. Because Caddyshack made a shit ton of money, and it was a comedy, so it was like super fucking cheap. And this was before this was Rodney Dangerfield. That was his big break into movies. Chevy Chase and Bill Murray hadn't at that time like really blown up.
Right.
I think Chevy Chase was probably the most well-known person in the movie, so they weren't super expensive.
Right.
And then in Caddyshack 2, they get Chevy Chase to do like a day of filming.
Right.
I think maybe a half a day, to be
Right.
honest. And then it does the same thing but worse. It's basically the same movie,
Right.
but way worse.
So the last thing I'm going to talk about on mine,
Okay.
anyway,
Okay.
is that as a whole, for genre movies, a reason why we go to like a handful of them from the 70s when we talk about 70s like horror and sci-fi is because that's all there were outside of like super low shot in the dark movies that nobody will ever remember. There's only a handful of like standouts really.
Yeah.
And so in a vacuum, there's a lot of things that like kind of, like you have a sequel in a vacuum, you're going to go see it no matter what. So, Jaws 2. So Jaws 2, came out like 3 years after Jaws. It was 78 or something like that. What about Jaws 2, Jay? Do you remember Jaws 2?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Jaws 2 is not a terrible movie. It is just not Jaws.
Right.
Well, again, it's you have the shadow of one of the
Right.
best horror movies ever made.
Yeah.
Right.
Full stop.
Yeah.
And so you have to match that energy, and
Right.
you
Well,
can't. You
this
can't.
one, this one falls into the same category that I put Ghostbusters 2 in, and that is lightning in a bottle.
Right.
They were able to capture this one thing,
Right.
and they tried to do it again, and it didn't work. Now, the Jaws sequels never got Spielberg back, so
Right. That was another thing that was an issue there.
So it wasn't a perfect thing, but like Ghostbusters 2 is like absolutely lightning. The first movie was lightning a ball because they got all the same fucking people back,
Right.
And it still wasn't. You know, people do like Ghostbusters 2, but it is objectively not.
I was going to bring Ghostbusters 2 up because I love that movie. It is not as good as
it's not as good.
But
as,
Ghostbusters, forget for me lightning in a bottle. That is one of the best comedy movies ever made.
It's really good.
Everything for such a off off the wall premise. The comedy is sharp. You have 3 of the finest comedians, particularly of that era, working at the same time and respecting each other's work and knowing where to come in on that. And Ernie Hudson is not a slouch, too. When he comes in there, he holds up his end of the bargain. Everything about Ghostbusters is amazing. Ghostbusters 2, I think, is good. But you can't compare those two.
Right. One's a masterpiece, and one's just kind of okay.
One's generational comedy.
Right.
It just is.
And you could argue the same thing with Jaws 2. Jaws 2 is good. It's just not as good as
Jaws.
Jaws 3D.
Yeah. This is where they're like, okay, we're running out of steam. Let's do a gimmick. Let's do 3D. This was in the 80s. Look, Ethan, in the 80s, there was this big boom where we had to make everything 3D.
It was like the 50s.
And this is
every 30 years.
And
every
this is
30
not
years,
now.
3D
And this is not
back.
like back in the day when 3D was big, where you got the special glasses and everything like this. This was literally like you got the blue and red glasses and bullshit like that.
And your eyes hurt after 15 minutes.
Yeah, and your eyes hurt after 15 minutes.
Jaws 4.
Jaws 4.
Move to another place where there's not water. The shark follows the family to the other side of the planet.
Jaws 4 is so insane that it loops back around to actually being batshit entertaining.
Right.
Yeah, 3 is just not good, period.
Right.
4, oh my God. The notion of a personal vendetta shark.
The shark drove Sheriff Brody to have a heart attack. Sheriff Brody doesn't get eaten by a shark. He has a heart attack because he's so worried
and dies off screen.
Jaws. They could have moved to the middle of the country where there are no sharks.
No bodies of water.
No, that shark was
That
shark
shark
was
would have
in
popped up in a fucking kiddie pool.
So I have all 3 of these marked together.
Also about Jaws,
go ahead.
when asked if he ever actually watched Jaws 4, Michael Caine, who is in it, said, "No, I didn't see it, but I saw the mansion that it bought me."
I remember that line. So 2, 3, and 4 together, critics.
2 probably got okay critic scores. 3 and 4 definitely didn't get good critic scores. Fans probably didn't like either. Most of them, maybe 2, they thought was okay.
They all went to go see them, though.
Yes.
So Jaws 2 tripled it.
Yeah. Jaws 4. Jaws. They made 4 fucking Jawses. They obviously.
They stopped
if
at
Jaws
4.
2 didn't make money,
They
there would have
obviously
been no
made
Jaws
money.
3.
Jaws 2 tripled its budget.
Yeah.
Jaws 3 doubled its budget, which because the gimmick and everything and the advertising or whatever. Jaws 4 also doubled its budget, but had the lowest budget of any of the previous Jaws movies, which it's kind of a thing they do in sequels anyway to risk reward thing. Did they ever make a Jaws 5? I don't think they did.
No,
I don't think they did.
There are enough, as James Rolfe has put it, there's enough shitty shark movies out there.
Right.
You could make a Jaws 5.
Yeah.
They never got around to making a Jaws 5.
I think at 4 they're like, you know what?
No, I'm pretty sure Orca killed Big Hollywood from making those because what the fuck?
Orca the killer whale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It stopped at 4.
Yeah. Those are and that's one of the things that will often happen with sequels is like diminishing returns.
Right.
We're just gonna milk this until there's literally dust coming out of the teat, so to speak.
Look at Saw.
Yeah. Yeah, but then they eventually were like, wait, they basically checked in every once in a while, was like, hey, can we do a Saw again? And then with this last one, apparently you can do a Saw again, because I heard that this one was pretty good, but I stopped watching. Those kind of fall into the same but worse. Usually it's just built on the twist of who is actually the killer or whatever.
My problem with it is Saw 3 should have been the last one.
Yes,
it should have.
Because to me, the draw for those films is Tobin Bell.
Yes.
Like,
right.
he embodies.
Well, that's why this newest one, they just like, well, we're just going to set this between Saw, before Saw 1, I believe.
Fucking just retcon it. He's alive.
Yeah.
Right. Fucking Tobin Bell.
A reboot,
Jigsaw,
if you will.
Yeah, it's insane with that. And then they try and do something different with Spiral, the Book of Saw, and that also is bad.
Was that the one with? Was that the one with? What's his name? 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 What's his name?
Chris Rock.
With Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't mind Spiral all that
I didn't
much.
watch
I
it.
didn't think it was good.
I
but
watched like
didn't
5
mind
of them,
it.
and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm tapping
Well, yeah.
out.
Well, and also another thing that's in the background with sequels is fatigue.
Yes.
And we see that specifically and not specifically, but the most extended way with the Marvel universe.
Yes.
We've seen these things over and over again so quickly. Again, I think Jay Bauman over at Red Letter Media said it best. There's been like 24 feature films of James Bond over 50, 60 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And there have been there was a point where we got to 25 with the Marvel universe in half that time.
Right.
Or a quarter of that time, maybe even.
Right.
Like I have seen some great movies.
Yeah.
Out of the Marvel universe, Captain America: Winter Soldier is like one of my
It's
favorite.
really good.
Is one of my favorite action movies of all time.
Yeah.
Full stop, legitimate. It's the reason why the Russo brothers were given the reins to the entire cart.
Right.
But yeah, like after a while, it's like okay. Like I liked Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange is one of my favorite heroes. But at some point, it's like I'm curious what New World or Brave New World Captain America is going to, because again it's Anthony Mackie on the screen as a lead for the first time, and I really like him and I want to see what he does.
Going back to Saw for 1 second though, my problem with movies of that kind of sub-genre horror of body horror, body torture,
it was the torture porn genre, and you just get tired of it. You can only see so many.
At one point we had Hostel, a sequel to Hostel. We had Turistas,
There
which
are 3 hostels.
I know.
The second one actually is more of an interesting movie than any of the other hostels, because it does something different with the story.
And then we have Saw, and it's just like body horror.
Well, you can only see and it got to a point with Saw where it's just like, let's not even give a shit. We don't really give a shit about the story, except for let's put a twist as who is and it's with the traps. What can we do?
Gimmick traps.
We'll write the traps, and then we'll fill in the rest. And that you get kind of you get numb to it, and you stop caring, and it stops doing anything. And that was the problem with that torture porn subgenre, is that you get inundated with it, and you get kind of inoculated to it. Where it's just
I have
it doesn't
to agree
mean
with Jay.
anything.
It's almost duality there with the Marvel films.
Yeah, and it's the same. Yeah, with just about everything.
Overexposure of something over time.
Yeah,
We'll do that.
I want to say something very quickly, just because. It's not a sequel thing, but Hostel and the original Silent Hill movie came out near one another, and they're both kind of, I won't say mid, because mid is like, I thought they were okay,
Right.
but with Silent Hill, I love that movie up until the end. I think they made some fantastic choices, and the end falls flat for me.
I actually like the second one way better than the first one. I don't know if you've seen the second.
I've seen the second one. I saw the second one before Kit Harington was Jon Snow, and I've seen it after Kit Harington is Jon Snow. And beforehand, it didn't work for me, and afterwards, like, oh, it's Jon Snow, and so I have a slightly more favorite, but it's still not something that kind of gets to me. But yeah, Silent Hill, great movie. Ending falls flat.
The ending was shit.
Hostile was dumb, but that ending got me out of my fucking
That was
chair.
a really good ending. Because they're walking through the dude's trying to go back in and save his friend or whatever, and you see Takashi Miike just walk past because he had a cameo role in that movie.
Yeah,
and it was a really good ending to that movie. I would agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And then they undo all of that in the second one. That's oftentimes something that will also happen, is something will be established in a sequel and then it gets undone.
Star Wars.
It will be established in the original movie, and then will be undone in the sequel, which really shits on usually a character.
Well, Friday the 13th Part 2 is probably the one that stands out for me as far as that goes, because the final girl, it's not even that she dies, is that you have this that opening is so slow, and almost to the point where I am bored out of my tears, that until she opens that door and it's Jason's mother's head in the fridge, and then she gets killed. Like, the payoff did not match the putting in. Like, I was
for me, it's 6, because Jason Lives is like they fucking killed him.
Yeah.
Like, the franchise is over. Please, can we not anymore?
Nope,
And
we
they're-
got to figure
they're
out
like,
a way to bring him back.
We're going to kind of like make some random person Jason now. Well, they only did that for one movie. And then
that
they just
didn't
brought
work.
him back again.
That didn't work, and then they brought him back as a
Well,
zombie.
well, again, as far as establishing things,
Right.
okay, so the Tommy Jarvis characters through 4, 5, and 6 is played by 3 different actors.
Right.
Yep.
So you have young Tommy Jarvis played by
Corey
Feldman.
Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
And then you go into 5, and 5 you have him for a brief second, and then it's years later, and it's the new actor.
Right.
And at the end of 5, he's the new Jason. The last shot of that thing is him with an axe with the fucking mask on.
Right.
And he's about to kill somebody, cut to black. 6. He's going into the woods to find Jason to make sure he's dead.
Yeah.
And then he just makes him that he's alive again.
Uh-huh.
With a good nod to Frankenstein. I did like the Frankenstein nod about how they get him back.
With the lightning and everything. Yeah.
I will also, since we're talking about horror stuff, the Halloween sequels, most of them sucked because the problem with Halloween, Michael Myers is a cool character, but he's just a dude, so you kind of have to do the same thing over and over again. He just gets loose and creates a bunch of chaos. And then they really lose the plot by putting into there's a cult that is behind, that has raised Michael from the beginning and have marked him as the child of Satan, and they're using him to bring about their nefarious deeds. And there's a baby that is also the son of this is part of this cult that Michael now has to go get. Why? Fuck you. You don't deserve to know why. We're making this up as we go.
They started when it started being a franchise, they started by retconning shit in the second movie.
Oh yeah, they just retcon shit over and over.
Well, because literally it's the continuation of that night.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, Jamie Lee Curtis is actually his sister.
Yeah, that's not in the original movie.
Yeah.
And then they retconned again several more times, and then Halloween H2O comes out, which I think is an actual decent sequel, and it says everything except for the first 2 movies doesn't exist.
Right.
And then these new Halloween movies come out, everything but the first movie doesn't exist.
Right.
And then in the in between, you have Rob Zombie's Halloween 1
Rob
and 2.
Zombie just making Rob Zombie videos and making us go to theaters to watch them. I like Rob Zombie as a musician. I despise Rob Zombie as a fucking director.
I really only like The Devil's Rejects.
I have not watched.
I will go on record. I love The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
I have hated every movie that I've only watched 2.
I hated House of a
Thousand
I hated
Corpses,
House
and I watched
See, my
Devil's
problem with
Rejects,
House of
and I
1,000
hated
Corpses
it.
is that it doesn't have enough of the best character of that, and that's Captain Spaulding.
Well,
Right.
yes,
Which played
that
by the God rest his soul, the immeasurably wonderful Sid Haig.
Oh yeah.
It's like I'm sorry, I love that part in the movie where the kid's in the car with him and like accidentally gets in the car and Haig's like, "What's the matter?" Like he's dressed up as the
And again,
it's like, "Don't you like clowns?
And again-
don't we make you laugh? Ain't we fucking funny?"
that is the best part in that movie. And again, in fucking Devil's Rejects, the movie ends with them like fucking like, Free Bird in the background.
Yeah.
And they're getting shot up all to hell
Yeah.
by the fucking cops. And then 3 from Hell.
I've heard 3 from Hell is like the most
It is
atrocious
so
piece of
shit.
They didn't have to revisit it.
It's so shit.
I stopped with two Rob Zombie movies, and I saw all I needed to see, and I did not watch any more. I want to talk real quick about the Matrix sequels.
Okay.
This to me is a case of they ran out of story, and it's partially the story was told. The Wachowskis had no intention of doing any more movies other than The Matrix.
They didn't expect it to make the money.
They had all of the story, but it made all of the money. So the studio was like, "Hey,
do it again.
We need more of this."
Do it
so
again.
they just had to kind of run
Wing
with it,
Yeah.
and it gets very messy. It undoes a lot of what was established in the first one, which I mean, sometimes that can work. By going like, hey, you thought it was this way, but it's really this way. But
Which
it
is
really
easy to
didn't
do.
make fucking sense when you think about it. You could think about The Matrix, everything that happens in The Matrix, and then you can go with and you can follow that, and it all makes sense. But then they changed it, and it doesn't fucking make sense.
Well, but when they start focusing on the actual real world, of the the robot revolution and all that.
The problem with the third one is that everybody likes what happens in the Matrix. Nobody gives a shit about what happens in the real world, and it's like 90% in the fucking real world,
right?
And a lot of it has to do with there were interesting philosophical ideas in the first one, but they were kind of, and I'm not saying this to be insulting. They were kind of like 101 level ideas. They were stuff. If you take philosophy 101, these are the things that we're going to talk about. And there's still some interesting things that they talk about in that. It's just not. It's just kind of. I don't want to use the word remedial, but it's low level when it gets to like philosophical discussion.
It's college freshman philosophy.
Yeah, it's freshman philosophy.
But like the second movie should have then gone to philosophy 102, and then the final movie should be philosophy 203.
And I think they got out of their debt. Like it was more like they had a good understanding of that freshman level stuff, and they didn't with the other ones, and they tried to keep doing that, and it didn't work.
Do you know?
Well, that, and I will also say I was with Reloaded up until the architect scene, and I feel they overwrote that scene. And to the point where it kind of damages the entire franchise,
dude.
Yeah, because
not the revelation that this is not the first Matrix,
because this is the big reveal where shit's supposed to drop on you and you can't understand what the fuck he's talking.
Ergo, what for fact, son, and inexorably, and like it just that didn't have to be that way.
Because he's talking like he just ate a fucking thesaurus.
Yeah. It's like he's and then vomiting out that thesaurus.
Yeah. I have to say this real quick. So, I was watching the second one in a theater. I was like, oh, it's pretty good. Matrix 2. It's all right. It's all right. We get to a scene where he's fighting the fucking dreadlock twins on the interstate, and they're on top of like an 18-wheeler or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this action sequence is pretty awesome.
That is one of the best action scenes of that decade.
But here's the thing, though. So like I'm watching it for a couple of minutes. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go to the bathroom. So go to the bathroom. It's a long walk, by the way. I walk back. Well, actually, I always try to run back because I don't want to miss the movie. That's how I am.
Yeah.
And I get back in there, and I sit down, and they're still fighting.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, this is a long-ass fucking action sequence.
That scene has the same problem, for me, that I have with the Obi-Wan Anakin fight, in that the shock of it hits you, and then by the time it's end of it, you're just, okay, it's over.
Yeah, the Obi-Wan Anakin fight in Revenge of the Sith is way too fucking long. But yeah, the also like, man, as good as like the CGI and the special effects are in the first Matrix, there are some shoddy parts of this. I think they get too ambitious, and this is a problem with the Wachowskis. What I love about the Wachowskis is they will always swing for the fences every single time. Sometimes they knock it out of the park, and sometimes they don't. More often than not, they don't, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they're going to go, they're not going to do like plain bullshit. Like you're not going to get just bullshit. You're going to get like an interesting idea.
Over the top bullshit.
Yeah, you're going to get over the top bullshit that is probably a pretty interesting idea, or at least it's out there. It's the very least it's out there.
Jupiter Ascending, man.
Yeah, you get Jupiter Ascending sometimes. Cloud Atlas. These huge fucking swings, and I think that they got way too ambitious for where the technology was at the time, and also it may be that like they had to cut corners in some way, because you look at all the shit that they had to do. That one shot of Neo in the first Matrix doing bullet time, where he dodges the bullet, and all the shit that they had to do with that.
They had to invent the effect that they did for that, which they took like 300 cameras or something.
Yeah, and they were all in like a spiral around them.
No, I think it was because I think every camera was a degree, so I think there were 360 cameras on that shoot. Which later Sherlock from the BBC would do that exact same shot. Like this is coming from an H Bomber Guy video. Would do that same shot for the bride and groom coming out at a wedding, all the way around.
Overdid bullet time.
That's way overdone.
It got overdone, and it was also done very lazily. Like no other movie, including I believe the Matrix sequels, put that much effort into it after that. They just use CGI to do that.
Kung Pao, Legend of the Fist.
To do that. And that's why all of those look like shit. But the movie that is, 25 years old,
right?
Still that part still fucking holds up,
right?
But wasn't Bullet Time also in the first scene where she does that like jumping crane kick?
Yes,
that's Bullet Time too. So
yeah. And they put that much effort into that part,
right?
But yeah, it's there were so many things that I think mostly it's just that the Wachowskis did not have a place to really go, and they had to kind of pull shit out of their ass. Whereas the first one, they put a lot of time in, and they had thought about this story.
And all of them made money. They didn't. None of them lost money.
Yeah. They all made a ton of money, but then that kind of, people weren't as interested.
Right.
After the last Matrix movie came out, people just weren't interested in the
and
Matrix
I understand
anymore.
Again why they made 4, because the studio was going to make it without them.
So 4, the reason why that one sucks is because they told them, I believe it was Lily Wachowski who ended up only making them. The other one, who I cannot remember her name off the top of my head, Lana. Lana Wachowski. She was like, fuck this, I'm not doing this.
Right.
But then they were like, hey, we're going to make a Matrix sequel, whether either of you have anything to do with it or not.
Right.
So Lily Wachowski was like, oh, I guess I got to make this. And
if it's going to be shit.
I feel like she tried to make a shit movie.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, it's in a similar vein. This is like another one we talk about. It was the same thing for Joe Dante with Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
He was not intending on doing a Gremlins 2, and they saw and then he heard about what it's like. No, I want to salt this fucking. I want to salt the fucking earth,
and made that movie batshit crazy. I love Gremlins too.
I love that movie.
I watched Gremlins when as a child. I watched Gremlins like maybe once.
Yeah.
I watched Gremlins 2 all the fucking time.
It's so fucking insane.
All the fuck. Are you telling me I can see an electricity gremlin? A spider gremlin?
Yeah.
A bat gremlin?
Don't forget fucking Gizmo Rambo.
Gizmo Rambo?
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me? I'm going to watch this every
little
fucking
bow and it shoots match arrows.
I'm going to watch this every fucking day if my parents will let me.
The only thing, and I will say this to the day I died, the only thing in that sequel that pissed me off was in the first movie. Phoebe Cates has this heartfelt story about her father dying
That was
in a fucking fireplace coming down the chimney as Santa Claus, and in the second movie they make a fucking joke out of it.
Yeah. That's one of my deep dark fears is getting trapped in a chimney.
Specifically dressed up as Santa.
Yeah.
Or?
Well, no.
And also,
regardless,
Gremlins is a proper horror movie.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons that the PG-13 movie exists.
Yeah.
I mean, people died in that off screen, but they died in it. Like the professor.
No, the lady going like she's got in
Miss
the automated
Deagle.
chair when she. I to this day I'm watching that. I am a child. I am watching that movie with my mother. and she crashes through the window, flies out, and go, my God! She goes, my God! Well, that bitch got it coming.
So yeah, let's move to actually some bad sequels and stop talking about good sequels.
But again, like just real quick with the Gremlins too. Like we like Gremlins
well,
too.
it is interesting to compare and contrast. Like these sequels did the same thing. They went crazy and went over the top and tried to salt the earth. But one is remembered pretty fondly, and I don't think 20 years from now anybody's going to give a shit. Probably not even gonna fucking remember that the Matrix Revelations, isn't that what it's called? Revelations, I think.
It's Reloaded, Revolutions, and Resurrection.
Resurrection. Revelations, I think, is the next one.
Resurrection always ends up being like the fourth movie title for a series. Like you have Alien Resurrection. There's a bunch of other Resurrections.
Resurrections, I think, is going to be the next one, if I'm not mistaken. There's
also like
one.
In sequels, there's a lot of 4s that are fucking shit.
Yeah.
Well, you've told the story 3 times already.
Aliens 4.
Yeah.
Alien. this is, even though David Fincher directed the third one, Alien Resurrection's better than Alien 3.
That's fine, but 4 is still a shit movie.
Because of how batshit that gets with Brad Dourif.
That is true, Brad Dourif.
Well, you could argue like there's been two good
Hellraiser 4, Hellraiser in Space.
Well, after Hellraiser 2, those stopped being good.
You are correct.
Because those
I'll say this one again. Hellraiser 4 is better than Hellraiser 3.
I would agree, because at least in Hellraiser 4, there isn't a CD Cenobite.
Yeah.
Or the rule of Pinhead just goes, oh, yeah, well, if you become killed by a Cenobite, you become a Cenobite.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, he also makes it to where the Cenobites they kind of lose the plot, because in the first 2 movies, the Cenobites they're bad guys, but they're not like the bad guys.
Right.
It's actually human beings.
It's actually human
are the
beings.
real evil.
They're just
the
vessels.
first one, fucking Pinhead doesn't show up until like the last 15 minutes,
something like that. Yeah, the build up for that movie is crazy.
I have to do. I'm sorry.
Explorers, in the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. Okay, sorry. Oh wait, that doesn't come off that way. Okay, wait.
Hang on. Okay, sorry about that.
The
I
worst
apologize.
part-
I thought that was a real push and release. It wasn't. I apologize, everyone.
This is an interesting question that I thought about, and I couldn't figure out, mainly because I haven't really watched the second one, because I'm not watching these movies because I have a fear of the original movie. So
Okay.
so I don't. So when comparing, contrasting these sequels that worked and sequels that didn't, we have 2 sequels of they are 2 halves of one story, and they come out very close to each other, and they're directly following these. And this is It Part 2, and this is Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 works like a charm.
Right.
One of the best movies that I watched of that year.
Yeah.
Was it this year or last
This
year?
year.
This year. Damn. Time flies.
Very beginning.
One of the best movies that I've watched of this year.
Really good.
Phenomenal. Excellent capstone of the first movie, goes perfectly with the first movie.
Yeah.
And then we have It Part 2, which people raved about it. I never watched them because, again, since I was a child, I've had problems with the It movies.
Right.
With the It movie.
Clown.
Are we talking about the original It series or the?
It was a TV movie that was in a couple. I am talking about It Part 2 that just came out.
And they also used to like throwing out the word miniseries. The Stand was a miniseries. There's 6 parts to it. It was 2 parts.
Yeah. So yeah, people like when It Chapter 1 or It.
Right.
I think it's It Chapter 1.
Yeah, Chapter 1
came out, like people raved about this.
Right.
And from what I've seen, it is a good movie. I haven't really seen anybody say anything bad about it.
I would say it's decent.
Yeah.
For a modern horror movie.
Yeah. Does a good job with the source material and everything. But then like It Chapter 2 comes out, and like people do not like this movie. At the very best, most people are saying like it's fine. And I want to see if we can maybe figure out, or maybe if somebody knows why one of these worked so well and why one of these didn't.
I think a lot of it had to do with casting too. Because like in the original miniseries, like you have like as Pennywise, you have Tim Curry, which nothing against Skarsgård, he did a really good job as
I like Tim Curry is to me the pinnacle of that. I think it worked well, and I think it worked well for that time frame. I think if you had
it could be argued with the original stuff, like Tim Curry was kind of the only good part of that movie, whatever,
miniseries,
however you want to call it.
Well, you also had like I think was it John Ritter?
John Ritter was the adult version of the fat kid who eventually lettered in Varsity Track and all the things, because they got over their teen angst. Like there's so much of the allegory of of childhood going into adulthood that is at the backbone of this. I think to me I think it's a psychological thing. Everyone wants to see the kids succeed. For the humans, like it's not that they're against them like living and making through it. It's just that like, okay, the kids made through it.
I think also for modern audiences, there is the time skip there is fucking drastic, because you go from 12-year-olds to everybody in their literal 40s.
Yeah.
And that's a big with no explanation of like really with the exception of like mentions of this relationship didn't work out and this and that and this kid got fucked up because of this happening, but you don't really have any like sort of, it's just like 12:45, like it's just boom boom.
It is just like again, like I'm never gonna watch these movies, even though I was basically forced to because my daughter decided that she wanted to watch these movies when the first one when she was over.
Also,
like,
the kid actors in the first part are fucking great.
Yeah,
like Finn Wolfhard and like everybody else were just amazing.
But it is very fascinating how like you kind of have like you have the same like I'm pretty sure if I'm not mistaken the director was the same.
Oh yeah,
the writers were the same, and then this one just falls flat. And from what I've heard, like part of it is also like changes in the story, but then you also have like again comparing contrasting with Doom Part 2. Doom Part 2 changed some of the story, but it didn't. But like that still worked. So I don't know. I thought that those were a very interesting like juxtaposition to look at as to like, hey, these are similar. They're not, of course, similar because I think whoever the fuck did the It movies, Denis Villeneuve like blows him out of the water as a director.
Right, of course.
I'm sorry, whoever you are.
Right.
I don't remember your name.
There's also like something that could be at the back, like Villeneuve, like he's getting paid a lot of money for, but you can tell this is a labor of love.
Oh yeah,
with like,
for
and this is
sure.
a story that he wants to tell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and a message he wants to get out.
Yeah.
I don't think you have the same thing with the management behind the It movies.
Yeah.
Well, it's like it's a horror movie. It's a Stephen King property.
Yeah.
It's part of the problem with horror movies and like lower budget, typically lower budget. They're just like part of the grindhouse, the last shreds of grindhouse movie making because they know they're going to turn a profit. It's not going to be great, but their investment isn't too bad. They probably like Finn Wolfhard probably got paid more than Bill Hader did. For those movies.
Yeah. Ethan, did you find the dude's name who I was shitting on?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
It is Andre Muschietti.
Yeah, fuck you, guy.
What else has he done?
I was kind of hoping this was like a shadow movie done by like fucking like Coppola. That would have been funny as hell. Like
Oh, dear Lord.
Alan Smithy.
Oh
Yeah.
dear Lord, he did the Flash movie.
Uh-huh.
Oh dear Lord.
Well,
Uh-huh.
I think with the interference of the reshoots, I don't think anybody technically did that movie.
He also did Mama from 2013.
I don't know what that is.
Is that
Is that the
one
movie
with-
with Octavia Spencer? And she's like that, like she's enabling all these kids to like do evil shit. But then
It's either that one or the one with the ghost that raised the feral children.
It's the Feral Children.
Oh.
It's the
Okay.
feral children. That was a movie that had promise and shat the bed.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about those kind of things. Maybe later we will
At some point.
Does anybody? So
Terminator 3.
Terminator 3.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
And after.
but specifically Terminator 3.
Terminator 3
Because
especially.
the ones that come after, I have no love for.
Yeah.
None. Terminator 3, I think, is a very good movie. But again, it is sitting in the shadow of the monolith. Like this has been said before by another movie, but let me say this again. This is one of Terminator 2 is arguably, if not the greatest action movie of all time, it has to be considered in the top 3 of all time.
Yeah.
Terminator 2.
Yeah,
And so in the
definitely.
shadow of that, you want to continue this story that was fairly well wrapped up with
Right.
Terminator 2.
Right.
Well,
But
yeah,
they
there
did-
was even a deleted scene that fast forwarded into the future.
Yeah.
Where it was a good future.
Yeah, where
and
it was good future,
Sarah
and,
Connor.
and John's a good man.
Yeah,
like
and
he has,
Sarah
and she
is,
has
like,
grand,
old-
and she's got grandchildren.
Yeah, she's like old as shit, giving like she's doing the tape recording again, but it's like futuristic.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they wrap it up, and the core of Terminator 2 was there's no future but what we make ourselves.
yes. And then
And-
Terminator 3 says, "No, Judgment Day is like they literally
And they
say in a
said,
line,
"Fuck you."
All you did was delay it. Judgment Day is inevitable." And it's just
Yeah.
like, well, shit. And then, but now this is one of the reasons why I like this movie. They had the guts to blow up the Earth.
I will say that they had the guts to do that, and I appreciate that. It just didn't work, and it undermined again, a really good movie. You know, a sequel that outshone its original. The first Terminator is solid.
So
the second Terminator is masterpiece.
And that's a show topic I want to do at some point in the future. Sequels that outshadowed.
Now I have a corollary that goes back to ours. So there's this movie. It's called Return of the Jedi. You may have seen it. So at the end of this movie, what has been one of the big bads has one of the greatest face turns ever. Is the one that kills the big bad, and then in that sacrifice he redeems himself.
Redemption.
Then you have this movie called Revenge of the Sith. Maybe you've heard of it. And then it's a prequel movie, and it is like, you don't see it on screen, but it's the heaviest implication ever that Darth Vader murdered children.
Oh yeah, he killed a whole bunch of children,
bunch of kids.
And then since we started with 6, and then we had 3 together. We'll add that for 9. So there's this movie. It's called The Rise of Skywalker, or the Last Skywalker, or whatever the fuck it was. And you find out, no, Palpatine didn't die. So the redemptive act of Darth Vader from 6, even though it was already shit on by 3, is completely undone because it meant nothing. If you want one of the myriad of reasons to hate the Rise of Skywalker, that right there.
Rise of Skywalker has kind of the opposite problem of some of these, is where it is a slave to what came before it. It is so I can't even think of the word. It is so has to be connected and reverenced,
while also pandering to a younger audience.
To the things that have come before, that it has to constantly call back and do all these things.
I ironically love the cavalry charge on top of a spaceship. That's
better than them undoing C-3PO's memory erase, Chewbacca almost dying.
Yeah.
Again,
there's 2 seconds where you're like, oh shit, they really did something, and there's
We have a 4-hour podcast one day. Today is not that day.
No, we don't, because I don't want to watch that movie ever again.
Sir, I think just your pure hate locked memory of it will allow you to get through that. But that's just me. That's just me saying things in the wind.
It's kind of a thing that we've talked about a lot, is that most horror sequels are just shameless cash grabs. Or are keeping a studio alive, like New Line Cinema with the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. That's a very interesting story.
That's a series that has had all types of sequels.
It has gone through a roller coaster of shit. Oh, this is really good. Oh shit. Because 1 was amazing, a great horror movie, a lot of really good gimmicks in it. Waterbed death scene, never seen it before. I don't think really much after that. And then you have 2, which is fucking Broadway.
And also batshit insane.
Insane. Then you have 3, which is like the fucking rock and roll Doc and Dream Warriors movie.
It's the Rocky 3 of the series.
It is so fucking good. And then you have 4 and 5, which are connected, which are okay. You know, those are whatever. And then 6 was a shit show.
Yeah.
That's Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare.
Yeah.
And then you have what, in my opinion, is one of the best taking on the genre films of all time, in Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Right. Super meta.
He would play with it more in Scream, but just kind of in the world he built and kind of made it out of that. And then there's also, he's playing on the tropes and commenting on the tropes, while at the same time putting together what is really and truly kind of a very, very good sequel if you're going to go that route. That's one of those times where the experiment, I feel,
Well,
worked.
New Nightmare came out after Scream.
Yeah.
Was it after Scream?
I'm pretty sure. Well, look it up.
Okay.
New Nightmare is 94.
Okay.
And Scream, I think, was 96.
Yeah, Scream is 96.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like 2 full years. Okay.
Because I knew that New Nightmare was where he got the idea.
Gotcha.
Where it's kind of where he started playing with the idea of the meta.
Yeah.
Scream is one of those where the sequels, the New Nightmare did come out before Scream. Talking about Scream, I think that's the one where I would argue like Scream 2 is probably is a decent movie.
3 is a shit show.
3 is bad because it rewrites a lot of stuff. It goes like, hey, the killers in the first one, they were just like agents of this guy.
Right.
Who was the love interest in Felicity?
Yeah, it like when you try and remake, like redo the canon, like, and it really hurts when you like cut the legs out of a villain. And it's like, okay, you had these two villains in the first one who were very interesting and just kind of psychotic, and then you go, well, no, they weren't the bad guys. These other people were actually the bad guys. They did he did everything,
right,
and they just kind of went along with it.
Yeah.
Sydney could not catch a break.
No,
no, never.
And then they just,
especially when she asked for better pay.
Yeah. Well, and then everybody else dropped out, and then they had to go crawling back to her. The problem I have seen, and I didn't watch past 3 to be honest, but the problem with the other ones is that it's always the mystery of who is the killer, but the killer is always who's the new person, because we're not going to kill these older people.
Right.
We're not going to kill anybody again from the original movie. Sydney's not going to die. Courtney Cox's character isn't going to die.
I want to say in the 4th one they turned one of the original people into the killer. I can't remember though.
No, it's not the 4th one was Julia Roberts' niece, Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts.
Oh yeah. Well, the mom of one of the characters.
Yeah.
I think.
That movie, Scream 4, has my favorite scene from any Scream movie, where Hayden Panettiere is on the phone with the killer, and he's asked her something about what sequel to that, and then she runs off 50 fucking movies, and to me that was the fucking perfect commentary on we don't make new shit anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so like they had diminishing returns with that, because it's like, oh, it's whoever is the new person that you're introducing,
right?
They're the killers, because these people aren't gonna suddenly be revealed as the killers.
The few times were, because these have been kind of shit too, where parody actually started outshining sequels, and that's like the Scary Movie movies. Because like the first one's pretty good. The second one's actually probably one of the best, and it's better than the later Scream movies.
Yeah, I don't know. With those, the jokes have worn thin on me, and people are still fucking making strong hand jokes. I'm like, Jesus Christ,
my
guys.
problem with the blank movie,
sure,
because you had Scary Movie, but then you also had like
that problem
superhero
is
movie and all that. But
those were kind of like pseudo sequels because they were doing the same.
My problem with the parody movies typically is the jokes they put into parody are literally locked into that time frame.
Right, of course.
Especially
very dated.
Especially with everything after that first Scary Movie, really. Like it had a lot of stuff, but like it really got as they got further along, and especially when they got away from the scary movies, and it wasn't the same people who made the scary movies, but they just started doing superhero movie, date movie, all those.
Right.
Those were literally just what can we make? What jokes can we make of things that are happening right now?
The Zucker brothers, I think, do it the best as far as parody movies, because they have actual jokes and there's a few that are linked in that time and place, like I think it's Top Secret, where
it's 85.
Yeah,
right?
like they have one reference to the Pinto, but everything else is like, especially like their jokes, what they deal with forced perspective. There's one scene in the movie where the Nazi is like walking towards a phone, and it's big in the like it's in the front of the camera and it's giant. But when he comes in and it's still giant. There's no pullback to a smaller phone. And he's like, he's got this phone that's big as him.
Top Secret is actually really fucking good.
It's a genius movie. But parody movie, referential movies, I think is what I like. Things that are there only to make jokes of a referential variety. Just
comedy
they
is
always
always
start flat.
Comedy always will diminish because things that are funny aren't necessarily continue to be funny. It's very rare that like a comedy. We've talked about this, like movies that hold up and things like that.
I think,
but
I'll say visual gags, I think stay evergreen, and I think it was two things I wanted to mention. My brain just literally shot out on the other one. Continue, and I'll probably scream it out just randomly. My apologies.
Yeah, well,
but yeah,
Please, my apologies for that.
No, it's okay. So we've been talking for a good while.
Slapstick. My apologies. Yeah, slapstick jokes like that. I think stay evergreen for the most part, unless they're so mean spirited, even in the time.
And that's a case by case basis, I believe, with that one. But so we've talked about a whole bunch of sequels, but and the reasons that they failed, and we've tried to kind of categorize them. Does anybody else have like anything else that they want to talk about? Because I think it's about.
I think we need to wrap it up, guys.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that's been discussed has been. We can continue going back and forth with different examples of different types of categories of disappointing or failures or such as
more of a critical and fan failure than an actual box office failure in a lot of these.
Yeah. Some of them definitely make less money, but I think a good place to close this is an appeal, because I know all of these Hollywood bigwigs, all the heads of these studios are listening to this. David Zaslav, Bob Iger. I know you're all listening. You're all fans. You're all bus heads.
The guy at Paramount.
Ooh, bus heads.
But here's my plea. Make it original shit, please, for God's sakes. Like, some sequels work, but a lot of them don't, and we're getting tired of the same thing over and over again. Stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah, we're grasping at straws.
Stop it.
A24 is keeping us alive right now.
Stop it. Make new shit. Stop turning Pixar into a sequel factory. Stop trying to hawk Max on us, David Zaslav. Stop it.
We haven't even talked about like remakes or anything like that.
That's another 18 hours of a podcast. But put that in the doc. That's your your thing. If we forget it, it's your fault.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or thank you. Maybe. I don't know.
No,
make original movies. Just try it. Just try it.
See how much you'll enjoy it.
Nobody knew Star Wars was Star Wars until it became Star Wars. So you got to try shit, you fucking cowards.
Yeah.
You fucking baby cowards.
That movie drew from inspiration.
Zaslav, you're a baby coward.
But it wasn't a rehash.
I'm getting close to where we might need to put a warning up on that, so I need to stop. All right, that's our show.
All right. Listen in for Jay to do all the plugs in post, because I got to go to work at 8:00 in the morning.
Okay, just sign us
off.
No.
Come on. We got Whiskey and Wrestling. Watch them. We got Fearology. Listen to that. We got Bearded Drums. Listen to that. We got the Completed Podcast. Listen to that. Thank you, McNard, for giving us this space.
Fearology.
Yeah, that too. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
If I did, fuck you.
From Whiskey and Wrestling, Big Dog Liquor. They got like discounts.
No. They do that on their own time.
Okay.
Listen to them to hear that
all right.
plug.
Yeah, find other ads on other podcasts that we recommend.
Yeah. There you go. That's all the plugs. Signing off for Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture. I don't remember exactly how we do this. I am Brady Davis.
I'm James McCarthy.
Jody Kite.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
There we go.
I was trying to get it counterclockwise for you this week.
Too bad.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I started, so it's okay if we go clockwise this time.
Okay, there we go. That's fine then. We kind of did like both sides of the clock, and it ended with Ethan, so that was pretty good.
It's all the clock.
Ugh. Wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow.